my name is Jared Bechdoldt. I am the authorized channel partner and certified integrator for content and program development. In short, what that means is I work with our certified partners to make sure they're qualified to support you in the field for your installations moving forward, and then for the life of your system from then on. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to talk about this list here. First of why ASSA ABLOY, what value we have for you, and then we're going to dive into the challenges you guys are facing today. And with that, we're going to speak to our IP technology. We're going to start out with our Wi-Fi, and then we'll move into our PoE. We're also going to look at system architecture, so an overview of what this is going to look like as a whole to get this completed. And then we're going to dive into products and speak to some applications, and then resources, what you have after this class is over, where you can go to get more information moving forward. So ASSA ABLOY is the global leader in access control with operations in over 70 countries and 49,000 employees. Every day, we're helping billions of people experience a new and more open world. Narrowing our focus for the North Americas, here's some of our premier brands for the door security solutions. Many of these products you're probably already using today, but you might not know them by name. So here's an image. We like to say curb to core. So the moment you walk into your facility, in every door inside of that, we have offerings for any need you might have, from energy efficient exterior doors and frames to door pulls, gasketing, and then moving into your interior, we have mechanical lock sets, door closers, and then specifically access control, we have those components. So an electric strike or a keypad or a mushroom button, power supply. And then what we're going to focus in today is integrated lock sets that are wireless and PoE. So we support every market between education, government, healthcare, even retail and residential. Each have their unique challenges and each have their own requirements. So we work with architects that you're already working with, the local authorities, and customers like yourself to create a specific security solution that is driven by your needs. To do that, we have a sales team around the United States and Canada. We have 19 sales offices, and in each office, we have a sales team, a technical team, architectural consultants, again, working with those architects that you're already working with. We have hardware specifiers. So really the idea is from start to finish, from that design stage to writing that spec for your architect, to holding your hand through the purchase program, to installation, and then training the team that's going to support you post-installation. Speaking to that team, we have 3 partners here that I want to highlight. The first is our access control partner. So what this is these are the access control platforms that have integrations with our lock sets. So currently right now, if you have access control at your facility, or maybe you have a camera system installed, these are the partners that we are currently working with. Also, we have access partners for distribution channels. So where you're currently buying your mechanical locks, so maybe a door closer, or if you need to order an additional key, they're also part of the program. And then we have certified integrators. So these are companies that currently might be installing your fire alarms or your burglar systems, or maybe running your data cables for your network. Possibly they've even installed some access control like electric strikes and things like that for you. And then we have the preferred installer. So these are qualified locksmiths that go through a training to be able to install our product. So when you hear somebody say they're certified with ASSA ABLOY, you can have that guarantee that they've gone through hours of training, testing, and a vetting process, and a commitment to not only sell our product, but be there to support it after the fact. So here are some of our access control partners that have integrations with our locks. And what I mean by integrations is ASSA ABLOY is a hardware manufacturer. So we make universal hardware, and software companies will write integrations to leverage the value that we can bring in addition to the standard hardwired controls. Don't worry if you're using an access control system that you don't see on this list. We have a software called Persona, which can run in the background, and in some cases can actually run an integration middleware for an access control system that you might be running. So please, if you have something that's not on this list, don't run away. Please ask that question, and this could be something that we could follow up with for sure. And speaking to that integration, like I said, we make locking hardware. And let's say in the case of keeping it simple, our locks communicate 1, 2, 3, 4, where a certain access control system might read 4, 3, 2, 1. So we have a software, the door service router. It's a middleware. It sits in the back. You really never see it. And what it is think of it as a translator between our locking hardware and the access control system. So when you're at your system, adding a new user or removing a door from a grouping or removing access from somebody, you're going to do that how you would traditionally for any other door. And this software is going to make those changes for you on the back end. So the challenges today. So specifically, we're going to start out talking about a retrofit application, right? So we have an existing building and you want to add access control to a door. You know, running wires can be a huge challenge because if you're in a building that might have concrete walls or cinder block walls or concrete filled frames, or you don't want to core a door, maybe in that ceiling there's asbestos, or maybe you just have time constraints because it's a main lobby area, or maybe it's a hospital space and you have all these requirements and limitations. And then you have these deadlines, you have budget constraints, right? You need to buy products that can get you through your need now, but ideally you want to future-proof so that you don't have to repurchase these things later on. You might have an existing system, so you have credentials, you already have that software that we spoke to, and you've already invested that money, so you don't want to spend that time looking at products that aren't going to work. And then an existing keyway. So if you talk to your locksmith or your engineering team, a keyway is a real driving factor. So making sure that you can utilize that existing keyway for that key override. And then speaking to more of a new construction, when you're looking at a design stage, you need to have these doors that have online access control, or what you want to say is global lockdown or remote unlock, things like that. So what we're looking at here is what I would call a traditional access control system. So think of every one of these blue dotted lines as a wire run, whether it's in the wall, in the ceiling, conduit, whatever we might have, right? So every access control system is going to start out the same with a software. So we see that on the left. That's going to be maybe in IT's room, or that might be in a security or an admin office. And then that's going to get networked to your building, to your whole site. Maybe you have a city that's being run. So all the access control is running off of one software. And then let's narrow it down to a building. So you're going to have an access control panel and that's in an IT closet. And then from there, it's running to the first floor. And we have a two-door controller that's sitting up in the ceiling. And then from there, it's going to go down to a specific door. So looking here, you have a Wigan card reader, right? That's on the wall. Then you have an electric strike, or if they actually drilled through the door, there's an electrified hardware. When you're leaving, they have that Rex up at the top, or your request to exit. So what that does is when you leave that room, it shunts the alarm from thinking somebody's trying to break into that door. And then finally, we have the DPS, or the door position switch. These are sensors that can alarm you if your door is left open for too long. So looking at this system, when it comes to running access control, there could be major challenges just in the physical aspect of the building. And so this number to get one access control door can dramatically jump just because it's so labor intensive. So this is where our IP enabled or our Wi-Fi solution can really come into play for these doors. So when I say Wi-Fi, I mean true 802.11, 2.4. I want to be very clear about 2.4. So the idea behind this is if you can walk through your facility and you can get on your cell phone or you can get on your laptop or iPad, if you have Wi-Fi, that door you're standing right next to, you can put a lock on with no wires. Everything is self-contained in the unit. So when it comes to a retrofit application, you can have those exterior main door and some of the doors that you need to spend that money to have that instantaneous changes. But when you look at all the office spaces and maybe anywhere where you have an offline keypad, these are perfect replacements because now you're actually getting audit capability moving forward. So here I have them side by side, and I wanted to dive in a little deeper just to really explain the simplicity of the install that we would have here. So we have here what's called our IN series lock. And in the back here, you can see the controller that's covered by a cover. So on the left, I've highlighted the access control panel and the door controller. That's now integrated into the lock itself. So on the back side of the door, you have a controller underneath that cover, and it's going to have 6 AA batteries in it. So all the decision making is made at that lock. So that's where we're able to move away from all the system infrastructure of cabling and control panels, because the lock has its own built-in control panel where decisions are going to be made. You have a wall reader that you're traditionally using. Like I said, ASSA ABLOY is a large company, so HID is one of our partners. So if you're using an HID wall reader right now, that same HID multi-class SE reader is the same reader that's going to be on our lock. So when you think of being able to future-proof your system in regards to utilizing mobile credentials or Bluetooth, or if you have a card technology now, right, and you need to look to migrate to something moving forward, you're going to future-proof yourself to where this hardware is going to last you much longer. Then we're looking at the lock itself, whether it's an electric strike cut into the door frame, or they might have cored that door and there's an electrified hardware there. That also is built into the lock. So you see that lever there, it's rigid. When you present your credential, you're going to see that green light. That lever is going to unlock for whatever time you set it for, and now you're going to be able to go in and out of that door. Then we're speaking about the REX, so the request to exit. So that little guy that's above the door every time you leave, sometimes you can hear it even going click, 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 right? So now that's built into the inside lever. So it's real sleek and simple. So when you press that inside lever down, that's shunting the alarm so your access control system doesn't think anybody's breaking in. And then finally, you have your door position switch, letting you know that that door is closed. So depending on the locking hardware, it's either going to go in traditionally in the side of the door, like standard traditional access control, or in this case, if it's a mortise lock, it's actually built into the mortise case, even giving it a sleeker look. So now that we have a lock that's self-contained, how does it actually work? So in an installation perspective, the lock is universal. So if you order it in the wrong handing, you can reverse that in the field. Extremely simple. So now you're looking at stocking product. You don't have to stock multiple products. You can stock one product, whether it's fail safe, fail secure, that's all programmable. So it's a universal product. When you look at using existing keyways, when it goes to the ordering structure, we have numerous keyways that we can use. So again, we place that order. So once you put the lock on the door, you can take that master level keying, right? So When we speak to keying, key override is a fantastic thing in case batteries or power were to go out, but you want to rekey that key so that it's at a higher level so that people don't traditionally have that key. You want them to be able to use that credential for audit purposes and security. And then when it comes into programming, so in the image to the right, you're going to see a lock on a door, and then you look at that wireless router there. So think of that as a freeway. So the Wi-Fi lock is going to get on your Wi-Fi network, and that's the freeway. And then it's going to be looking for your access control system. So it's going to take that exit and make that communication using your 2.4 gigahertz network. So it's not online all the time. When the lock wakes up, it's just going to talk for maybe 15 seconds and then get offline. It's the equivalent of sending a text message. So we have sites that are running hundreds of thousands of locks, and it can be less bandwidth than a student or an employee streaming some Netflix or something like that. So in that aspect, it's not bogging down your network. It's just chiming in just to let you know how it's doing. And then the multiple credential formats. So like I said before, you might have an existing building and you built a new building and you want to update your technology, or you're having to mix and match. So some people might be using a traditional prox card where other people have a newer technology, maybe a mobile or something like that. These readers are able to be programmed to read multiple technologies at the same time. So as you migrate to a stronger credential, once that last credential is gone, you can go down and reprogram and just have it set to your current credential, or maybe you're moving to another one after that. And then finally, talking about the operational narrative. So this is a Wi-Fi lock. So there are some things, though it's fantastic for retrofit, you cannot force communication. The lock initiates the communication. So what I mean by that is, you initially set it up on a schedule. So when you program this lock, you can have up to 10,000 users. You put those users in the lock. You say when they're allowed to go in. Maybe you want the door to be unlocked from 9 to 5 every day, or what have you, right? You set up all your alarms if somebody leaves the door open longer than 30 seconds, or if they use their key to get into the door. These are all alarms that can be triggered. So the lock's going to sit dormant. And as long as it's normal operation, it's just going to sit there. But as soon as somebody leaves a door open longer than 30 seconds, an alarm's going to go off. That lock's going to wake up. It's going to talk to your access control system. It's going to send an alarm. It's going to say, this alarm's been triggered. So now whoever's managing your access control system can see that. While it's there, it's going to say what its battery life is. Here's my audits of all the people that have come into this door that were allowed to. And then it's going to ask for any information. So if you've made any changes since the last time that lock has reached out and communicated several hours ago. So maybe it's a new user that you added in. It's going to pull that user. So now that user's in that lock. So these are fantastic, again, for offices, for single occupancy bathrooms, for classrooms, things like that, but they do not do global lockdown. Just to be very clear, because the lock has to initiate. So you program a set of alarms that the lock will initiate. So jumping into a little bit about the reader. So like I said, it's a multi-class SE reader. So it comes set with NFC. So you can use that mobile device as long as it's not an iOS device. iOS currently, Apple devices are only using BLE. So that's an additional add-on you could choose if you want to future-proof and you think there's a chance you might use mobile moving forward. If this is a government space and you're currently using your personal identification cards or your PIV cards, as we call them, our readers can read this card, right? On those spots that once you get through the initial secure portion of your building and you're going to your office, you no longer have to carry a second credential. We can read that PIV card because the requirements to get in your office aren't as strong as the exterior of the building. And then PIN pad, we have PIN pad offerings. So if you're looking for dual validation, So on these places, IT closets, or maybe an evidence room, or if it's a testing center or med room, something like that, really anything that you want a higher level of security, we can do that dual validation, or you can pick and choose if you want to use pin pad today, use your credential tomorrow, whatever is easiest. So now that we've talked about the technology, let's actually dive into the products. So what we have here is what's called our IN120. So our IN series lock is just the aesthetic footprint of the lock. The 120 tells us it's our Wi-Fi lock. So this is made by Corbin and Sargent. So like I said, the intelligence is built in to the lock in the controller on the back side. So depending on the software, you can have 2,400 users to 10,000 users in 10,000 events. So what I mean by events is audits. So the last time it communicated. So when people came and when they left, all that information is going to be stored for tracking purposes. And the next time it connects to your access control system, it's going to give you that information. When we talk about power, yes, it is a battery operated lock. 6 AA alkaline batteries. So we want to stick with alkaline batteries because when we put lithium batteries in there, we don't get a true battery life. So with alkaline, as the battery life drains, our locks can track that portion and it can send reports to your access control system. So when the battery life gets down to the meter, it's going to send an alarm. Every time it checks in, it's going to let you know, hey, just to let you know, I'm at 50% battery life. When it starts to get below that, you're going to present your credential. If you're allowed to go in, it's going to let you in. But after that fact, it's going to flash a couple more lights just to kind of draw your eye to it. The idea is the access control system is letting you know that the batteries are getting low, but our hardware is also doing the same thing. Once it gets to the point where the batteries are about to die, you're only going to have override credentials that are going to allow you to get in. So that might be your security team, your engineering team, things like that. And if it finally does die and you ignore all the signs, you see there a key cylinder, you're always going to have key override to get in. You simply pull the back cover off with the security bit, replace the 6 batteries. As soon as it charges back up, you're good to go. So typically we see 14 months to 2 years of battery life, and this is 100% dependent on usage. So we have 2 scenarios. We have one on an office door, and the alarms are if the door is access denied. So if somebody presents a credential to try to get in and they won't, and that's the only alarm, compared to a door where every alarm is possible is set. So the more alarms that go off, the more times that lock is going to wake up, get on your Wi-Fi network, and let you know that there's an alarm issue. And then it's going to go back to sleep. So the more times that happens, the faster the battery life. Though I love our locks, I think they're fantastic. They do have their places. When you have an entrance to your building and there's hundreds of people coming through the door every day, I would not recommend this lock to go through. Because in that situation, odds are you're going to need an auto operator that somebody can open up for those ADA compliance spots. With these locks, the lock unlocks, but you physically have to press the lever to retract the latch. So in situations where you're looking to use this with auto operators, we would look for a different offering for that. And then getting into the privacy button. I've said it before, with our Wi-Fi locks, you cannot do a global lockdown. But this gives you what we call shelter in place or a local lockdown. So if you look at that back cover, you see that little red light lit up. Let's say this is on a single occupancy bathroom. We all have access into this bathroom, but when I go into that bathroom using my credential, I shut the door and I push that button. Now everybody's credentials are locked out. Once I finish, I press the lever down and open the door. It's going to reset that lock, so now everybody can use it. So of course, we're always going to have key override to be able to get in there if somebody was to get hurt and we needed to get into that door. you could use your key override, but also we have digital card override. So think of this as a digital deadbolt. So if a security team or an engineering team was to have access to this and there was a situation, you could present that card and it would override the lock to be able to get in. So when we talk about hardware types and form factors, so we have the mortise lock to the left, we have a cylindrical lock, and then we have rim exit, mortise exit, and then we also have what's called a multi-point lock. So if you look at that hardware, you have top and bottom latching, and then you also have traditional latching like you would from a standard mortise lock. All technology is the same in all of these. It's just different form factors for the needs you might have. And then the other unique product we have is what's called our Wi-Fi EK1 or our Retrofit Kit. So you're going through your building and you're moving towards our Wi-Fi lock, and that's fantastic. And then you come to these existing exit devices that you have, and they're Von Duprin 9899, which are pretty common, but you don't want to spend all the money to replace an exit device because you might have just put that in there. So we actually make a retrofit kit. So if you look to the picture right here, you're going to see an electrified trim, a reader, and then on the back is going to be a controller. So you pull off your mechanical trim from the outside of the door and you drill a few holes and you can bolt this on, and it's going to cover up and match up to the footprint that you had before. And so now you have access control utilizing not only your existing Wi-Fi infrastructure, but also now the mechanical hardware you already have in place. Besides the IN series lock, we also have what's called the passport style lock. So technology-wise, it's going to be the same, but with one added benefit. This is typically used in our university space. So you can see there mag stripe. So many universities are still using mag stripe when it comes to their campus. And so if they desire or need to, we have that platform that they could use a mag stripe, but at the same time, you see it has a keypad there. And then on the bottom, you can see it actually has a card reader too. So they can choose to use any form of technology. So if a student is using magstripe, they can use that to get into their dorm room, or if this is an office, but like let's say a professor or an engineering team, they don't have magstripe. So they're either using a pen and a credential or maybe just a credential. But again, technology is the same. It's just the physical footprint of the lock. So like the IN series, we have cylindrical, mortise, the rim exit, mortise exit, and then again, that retrofit kit. So if you have existing Von Duprin 9899 bars, we can add access control in a very simple manner. So now that we've talked about Wi-Fi, I want to dive into PoE or power over Ethernet. So typically we see Wi-Fi being a fantastic retrofit application. But when it comes to new construction, it's always a benefit to be able to hardwire if you can, because you're going to get that instantaneous change, right? Or that global lockdown that we hear everybody talk about. So we designed the power over Ethernet lock. So this uses, again, your network, but it's an actual Cat 5e or better. So you're plugging a Cat 6 cable into your network PoE switch. And then you're running that cable through the hallway, down the frame, and going to the lock. So I want to speak to this. So if we look at the picture here and starting at the 3 on the left, so that wire coming down your door frame, that would be running from your IT closet, and that's plugged into your network switch. And then from there, we have a transfer device. In this case, we're using a hinge. So aesthetically, when you open up that door, nobody's ever going to know there's wires running through that hinge. So it gives a nice, clean appearance. And then from there, it uses these Molex plugs that you can see up in the right. And there's what we call a through door cable. So there's a cable already in the doors that are showing up for your site. And then at that point, you just plug the lock in. So this is where it goes back to the offerings that ASSA ABLOY can give you on a local level. So our team can come in and our experts can come in and find what product works best for you. And then if you want, we have free services where we can work with your architect and we can write that specification for the product you're looking for. And we're going to double check that for you. So when that product shows up on site, all these things and the installations can go as smooth as possible because we've double checked that product and those requirements for you. In addition to your power savings, or in addition to being able to have that instantaneous lockdown for that new construction and the ease of installation, because now it's only one cable instead of multiple cables split off going to those readers. We've done testing for power consumption. So based off of a traditional access control door that we're looking at here, it's about $28 a year. But being that we're using PoE, and if you look at the current, so on a traditional mortise lock, let's say, there's a solenoid inside of there. And when you need to retract that solenoid, it's constant power. And so that's just draining power just for day-to-day entrance. So when we designed our mortise lock for our EcoFlex lock, it's completely reinvented. So now there's no solenoid in there drawing that power. So in addition to that, in being able to operate with PoE cabling, our power usage has gone way down. So now that cost ratio per year banked out. And the last thing is looking at these cables. I just said it before, but with the Molex and plugging in and the through door cables, if you look to the left of that access control, once it hits that two-door controller, you know, there might be requirements for conduit and J boxes running all through those walls. And when you look at the PoE lock, it's just one cable going down the frame through the door and being cored. But now when you look at failure points, if something starts to go wrong, you have one point of inspection. You just unconnect that at the door frame, for instance, and you can plug in a tester and you can test that. You don't have to go to each unique component of that door. So now we're looking at PoE as simpler installation, simpler testing for challenges moving forward. And then you're getting a cost benefit post-installation for the life of the system. So diving in a little deeper, aesthetically, I have here the IN series lock. So we're calling this 220. That's how we know that it's PoE, but aesthetically, they're going to look the exact same. So if you have certain doors where you want that instantaneous changes in audit capability, that's going to be on your IT closets. But the office next door, where you're not going to need to make very many changes in the alarms, you're not going to run as many alarms. The Wi-Fi, you can save some money, but aesthetically, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. And then again, for the footprint, for the intelligence, 10,000 users, 10,000 audits. When it comes to the power, look at these requirements, far less watts. And then LEED certification. So we have a whole team. Many of our products, you can actually gain LEED points towards your total building infrastructure. So we have documentation if that's important for you. And then lock operation regardless of the network status. I apologize. I got rambling and I didn't mention this with the Wi-Fi lock, but being that it's battery powered and has its own controller, if the power goes out, the lock or your Wi-Fi network goes down, the lock has all the smarts inside of it. So the last time it contacted the access control system, it's going to run like that. If your power's out for 2 days, it's just going to store all those audits. And when it gets up to 10,000, it'll be a first in, first out. And then as soon as that Wi-Fi network is back up and running, it's going to give you that huge data dump and it's going to pull any new changes. Same goes with the IN120, the PoE lock. If your power goes out or your access control system goes down, as long as you're using a backup or some kind of power can go to that lock, it's going to keep functioning. So the user experience, unless that's their first time to that door, they're going to be able to get in. They're never going to know if that power's down. So that's going to save you on the headaches of the service calls and the complaints and things like that. And then being that this is hardwired, you're going to have that global lockdown, those remote unlocks, those things that you're looking for from a new construction project. And then also you have that local lockdown, so that button on the back to be able to, if we're using this in an office space, let's say we're having a conference room meeting or a closed door meeting, you can lock that and you don't have those occurrences of somebody accidentally walking in and poking their head in during a meeting. We've all been there. So in kind of closing, I'm going to leave this slide up, but this is a little cheat sheet. So I'm going to have this in another slide coming up. But if you want to highlight this or snap a picture, but this is really just kind of a good overview of things, key points to remember from this. So when we're speaking about our Wi-Fi locks, it's running on your existing 2.4 gigahertz network. So this is true Wi-Fi. The downside to that, there's no wireless lockdown. So you can't push a global lockdown to a Wi-Fi lock, but you do have that local lockdown. But when it comes to a retrofit application, the cost savings are astronomical, because all you're doing is pulling off an existing lock, drilling 4 holes and bolting a new lock on, and now you can program that lock for access control. So we see this in dorm rooms and offices, classrooms, single occupancy bathrooms, anywhere where you currently have a keypad now, where the 6-digit number is probably written on the door frame. You can swap this out and now you have true access control. And then you look at the form factors, the mortise, cylindrical, rim and mortise exit, and then the multi-point lock. And then we talk about power over Ethernet. This is typically going to be new construction. So you have that instantaneous lockdown. You have that the cost savings for the life of your system moving forward, right? And then this is new construction. So again, offices, classrooms, using these on exterior main doors because they don't have batteries, IT closets, med rooms, or any other spot that you need to secure, whether it's medicine or files, things you want those instantaneous changes. Again, those form factors are all going to be the exact same. So jumping into resources, what do we have post training here? So again, here's another checklist that you can find on our websites, but if you want to take a quick snapshot. So earlier in the week, we talked about a Aperio technology that we have. We have integrated Wiegand. So we talked about the Wi-Fi, the PoE. So these are just simple discovery questions that you can ask, and this will kind of gravitate you towards the direction of what we think you might need. So all of our websites have independent, or all of our products have independent websites. But if you want to focus specifically on our electronic offerings, whether it be components or integrated lock sets, Intelligent Openings is a fantastic spot to start. And then this will link you to all the appropriate websites. On Intelligent Openings, we have what's called our EAC Configurator. So if you're going through trying to figure out what product you may need, this is a step-by-step guide that'll walk you through it. So if you're looking at a finish, it's actually going to pop up and show you the finishes that you can choose from. If you're looking for a specific lever in 107 ME or an MP or an NJ, doesn't mean anything to you. You can just look at it and pick the one that is aesthetically pleasing for you. And then once that's done, you can choose to print that off as a PDF and talk to one of us locally. Or if you want to email that to your architect and say, hey, this is the product that looks good for us. We just have these as tools for you. And then finally, we have the customer support app. So whether it's an electronic product, a mechanical product, a door, all of our brands are in this one free app. You can get it from the Apple Store or from Google Play. But the benefit is it's a one-stop shop for you. Click on the brand you're looking for, and it's going to give you their customer support, their customer service line. If you want to instant message chat them, or you want to do a live interactive video. In addition to that, we have a resource center with catalogs, installation guides. We have videos of installations and just general knowledge. And then again, if you're on the fly walking through your actual facility, the EAC configurator is on there, and you can actually configure something as you're standing at a door. And then finally, like Chad said, this is one but many trainings that the team has and puts together. So if you're not currently enrolled in ASSA ABLOY Academy, I urge you to just gain that free value, just to update your knowledge, I think it would be fantastic. So that's all I have. I appreciate your time.